One of the authors of that story from The Athletic is Mike Sando. He joins us here on XL Primetime. Mike, thank you for the time, man. How are you?
Doing well, thank you. Glad to be here.
Hey, Mike, you've covered the NFL for many, many years. I've enjoyed your work back when you were with the Four-Letter Network and now your work with The Athletic. You've done a lot of stories. The Urban Meyer piece that you helped put together this week, how odd was that for you to listen to some of those quotes?
Uh, very, very odd. It was kind of unprecedented. I think there's always been a toughness and a tough edge to coaching, and there is tough coaching in the NFL, and tough coaching's fine, right? You're going to get on players. You're going to push them. I think when it crosses the line into the demeaning stuff like we outlined in there, saying guys couldn't make $15 an hour, or hey, these guys from the South, their transcripts, you got to worry about them. That type of stuff, or making a player cry. I think that clearly crosses a line, and probably especially so now, right? I mean, I think there's an evolution going on in terms of how players are treated, and it sort of brings it into even sharper relief how out of place it was.
So, Mike, I wrote a big story on Urban when he was in college about how he just basically destroyed the Florida program that did the same thing at Ohio State. He held the scholarships over those players. That's how he controlled those environments. The question with me is, how did that team not basically rise up against him and just say, we're not playing for this guy? Why didn't they just go to the owner and just say,
Yeah.
look, this isn't happening. We're not doing this.
I think different people were affected in different ways. I think that some people didn't really get in the crosshairs as much. I think other people really did. And maybe over a longer period of time, more and more people would have gotten into the crosshairs. You might have had that type of a situation. But the truth is, he really wasn't there that long, probably long enough for that to happen. So that's probably the best answer I can give you to that.
Mike, one of the things that I liked about your piece was, look, we all have sources, right? Anonymous sources. I don't want to put their name on it. That's fine. And there's no problem with that. DJ Chark put his name on this
Yeah.
story. Of course, DJ just signed with the Detroit Lions last week, was here in Jacksonville for 4 years, obviously, including last year with Urban. And when a former player, a high-profile player like DJ Chark goes on and says in your story, and I'm paraphrasing here, I can't believe Urban lasted as long as he did. Good for DJ Chark to put his name on something like that.
Yeah, I thought it really strengthened the story. I agree with you. We were careful as it was, because when you are quoting people anonymously, you can't just give them a free rein to rip a guy, right? There has to be actual things that happened, and then you have to be able to corroborate it with multiple people. So we were very careful in that, but I agree. I think having him speak on the record helped. We thought we were close to a couple of other guys, and it just didn't work out in the end. But I agree with you. I think that's a critical component lending credence to a story like this one.
So, Mike, in your 3 decades of covering the NFL, what could you compare this to as far as a coach making an environment so toxic that literally it was impossible for a team to win?
I don't think there's one like this. I don't think there is one this spectacular that I could think of, where you'd basically be looking at anyone that was a one-and-done coach, and then not just losing, but multiple embarrassing things. And I think the not coming back on the flight from Cincinnati, and then having video of the coach, doing what he was doing, that really puts it on a different level. And I know we're in an era when everything gets videotaped, but you just couldn't imagine. I can't think of anything like that in the long time I've been covering the league.
Well, Mike, I'm again Mike Sando of The Athletic here with us on XL Primetime. I guess my question is, when you talk to guys for this story, even though DJ's not here, he's in Detroit now, I'm sure this probably came up. I mean, the Jaguars are a young football team with Trevor Lawrence as the quarterback. This was their introduction to the NFL, this absolute dumpster fire that Urban Meyer had here in Jacksonville. I mean, what ramifications for the young guys could last year have moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, every year is precious, right? If your rookie contract and trying to get on the right foot. So I think some of them may feel like they lost a year, but I think he was there so short. I think Doug Peterson is going to be a more conventional coach with a regular environment, and it's probably refreshing for him. I think the team will have a performance boost just off of having more competent coaching that players can probably believe in a little more, or a lot more.
That was actually 100% my next question too, Mike, is Doug Peterson's been in this game. He's clearly won a Super Bowl. He knows how to coach players. He knows how to deal with players, how to motivate players. How much differently can this team be, number one, under him? And number two, do you see talent on this team where it could be a decent jump from last year?
Well, I thought they were going to win more games last year than they did. I didn't think they were going to have a great year, but I thought they might win 6 games or something. And then, for all the reasons that we wrote about and probably more that we don't know about, they really underperformed. That said, I do think the moves made in free agency are being made because they don't have enough good players. So you don't have great players. Enough great players or good players on the team, and now you're going to try to bring them together quickly. Maybe this year they have the type of year that I thought they might be able to have last year before we knew how sideways the Meyer thing would go, right? Where you're at least representative. I don't know that they're going to have a winning record, but what if they could win 6 or 7 games? Is that a realistic first season? And we just sort of put, erased last year from the memory banks.
Couple more from Mike Sando of The Athletic. He wrote the Urban Meyer piece on Monday. A lot of the attention from that article and that story, Mike, was the Aaron Donald thing. A lot of the national websites picked that up. I think Urban said something along the lines of, who's 99 on the Rams? That guy looks disruptive. When you read that, I'm thinking, all right, my mother knows who Aaron Donald is, right? My wife, who does not particularly care about football because of my line of work, quite frankly, knows who Aaron Donald is. I cannot believe that an NFL head coach would not know who Aaron Donald is. Was that a tongue-in-cheek mark, or do you honestly think that he did not know who Aaron Donald was?
No, multiple people said that was the case. Now, I think you can look at different contexts for how that could happen. Do you know who Aaron Donald is? Oh, yeah, I know Aaron Donald is, whatever. If you're watching film, hey, who's this 99 guy? God, this guy could be a problem for us. There's a difference, right? If you're watching 49ers and seeing Deebo Samuel, anybody's number 9, do you know he's number 19? That sort of a thing. So I think there's probably a little bit of a margin in there for how that could be portrayed. And yet when you're completely unaccountable, like as he's been, I think was in college, and completely powerful, you can sort of know what you need to know. I used to joke with great players I covered that they couldn't name everyone in their own locker room, and they didn't deny it because they knew who they needed to know. And if you're Urban Meyer, you know what you need to know, which is whatever you want to know.
Mike, this is Dave Campo. Thanks a lot for coming on with us. My question is this: obviously the Urban Meyer story was out there big. But I'm curious as to what you as a national guy feels about the market for free agencies. Jacksonville's getting their butt kicked a little bit nationally for the guys that they took this year. What's your feeling on that?
Yeah. Well, I think there's no one in the Jaguars building or any building who thinks the best way to build a team is to go overpay for a bunch of guys in free agency. Everyone understands that. But when you're in a predicament like the Jaguars are in, where you just need players, they don't have guys on second and third contracts that are filling those roster spots. You got to line up with someone, right, Coach? If you're putting together the team, that's not them overspending for Christian Kirk or whatever. Yeah, that would come back to bite you if you had a bunch of other guys you had to re-sign. They don't have those players, so they need somebody. And so this is the position you find yourself in. I think in that context, it's different than just looking at, hey, should this player get that? Well, of course, ideally he wouldn't, but what are we going to do? We got to line up in the game. And so a player like Kirk is a great example, right? He was in Arizona. Jerry Sullivan's in Arizona. Trent Baalke was in San Francisco when Jerry Sullivan was there. There's probably some sort of a feel for what they're getting, right? They feel good about it, and they feel like there's probably a value there and a fit. So I understand what they're doing. I agree with the criticisms in general. Just when you apply them specifically to teams that don't have players, I think then you're missing the boat a little bit. You got to have somebody.
All right, Mike, leave us with this, man. Again, I really appreciate your time. Again, in your time covering the league, the last 14 days have been unlike anything I've ever seen in the NFL, and I'm just curious, your perspective. Is this the craziest offseason we've ever had?
Unbelievable. I was stacking the players. I was texting, actually, a coach from a team who switched teams this offseason and went to a team that's totally different now than when he got there. You know, he had no idea. He thought he was joining a team that had this player and that player or whatever, and the guys are gone. And I can't remember it. I mean, I just can't remember this many frontline players. I think three or four of the top paid receivers have been moved. You know, Russell Wilson, Matt Ryan, all these quarterbacks. It's really different. I think we're in a different era now when maybe the money is so big that the owners are now a bunch of billionaires and they just eat some of the contracts and move guys. It's unlike anything I can remember.
Mike Sando of The Athletic. He is a terrific NFL writer, and we certainly appreciate his time here on 1010XL in Jacksonville. Mike, thank you very much.
Thank you.